I don't want to call this a rant, but this was prompted by this video that I just finished watching from this creator. Her name is Nefisa Zakari. I think I'll put the video in the caption so you can go watch it. And basically, it's an address to northern Nigerians, specifically northern Nigerians that like to defend the integrity of the north or defend Arewa when other people are criticizing Arewa, especially following what VDM said about the north being the main crux of the problems in Nigeria, or being the north being the region that is holding Nigeria back. She said something that really resonated with me, right? And she was like, it's basically her just getting into all these, as she called them, educated illiterates that like to put defending the integrity of Arewa above all and sundry, right? And the thing of, you actually need to sit down and come to the realization that a criticism of northern Nigeria is not an attack on northerners, Like me, for instance, I was born in the north, I was raised in the north, I have lived my entire life in the north, and I'm going to probably continue living my entire life in the north. Hopefully not. But so these are people that I know. This is my community. When I talk about the Northern Nigerian society, that's my society. That's my community. I know the people in my society and I know the people in my community. And it's a thing of, if you love Arewa, you truly love the north and you want the north to be better, you have to be able to criticize the north and you have to be able to point out the realities of what we are facing in this specific region. Now, Nigeria's problems, right? Nigeria's problems are national, Corruption is national. Bad governance, it's national, Economic hardship, all of these problems are national. But northern Nigeria is currently where many of Nigeria's most severe failures of governance are situated. And the thing with me is, when we're talking about the problems of the north, I always feel some type of way when we talk about the various problems or the various issues that we have in the north, as though they are separate issues, right? We talk about insecurity as one issue. We talk about child marriage as another issue. We talk about poverty as a separate issue of its own. Religious extremism is a different topic on its own. Bad governance is a different topic on its own. Bad healthcare system, all of our problems, we basically kind of compartmentalize them. To me, right, I see all of these issues as being symptoms of the same disease, right? And this is my chain of thought, so follow me for it. You look at northern Nigeria, right, and you will come to see that there is one single thread that actually connects to every single problem, every single issue we have in this region. I'm so used to saying in this country, but in this region, since we're specifically talking about northern Nigeria. And that thread is education. Or should I say the lack of education? The absence of education itself, the absence of quality education, the absence of, widespread literacy, the absence of critical thinking itself, the absence of tools that people need to understand the world and the region that we live in today. To question what they are told, to demand for better for themselves, to even dare to even think of better for themselves. Because when education fails, right, everything else starts to fail starts to fail after it. It's like a domino effect. When education fails, poverty becomes much easier to sustain. When education fails, manipulation becomes easier. When you talk about education failing, that is exactly the time where extremism, specifically religious extremism, begins to find a fertile ground to grow on. When education fails, it becomes way harder for us to hold politicians accountable. It also becomes a lot more easier for misinformation to spread as quickly as possible. Because nobody is doing any form of critical thinking. Nobody is doing any form of research. Nobody is trying to search this thing to see if it is true or not. It's just take. And most importantly, right, when education fails, generations of people keep getting stuck in cycles that they did not create, but they will forever continue to struggle to escape it. That is why, to me, right, I see education as being the biggest and the most important foundation upon which every single solution that we're going to give in this northern Nigeria, it has to be built on that. Education has to be the foundation where that solution should be built on. And let's even look at the numbers, right? Nigeria currently has the most out-of-school children in the world, according to UNICEF. We have like about 10.5 million out-of-school children in the in Nigeria, making us the most in the world. You look at that, and then you think about where are these out of school children, right? Because they just give us like the ballpark of numbers in Nigeria. Over 60% of those out of school children, over 60% of that 10.5 million children that we have, they come from northern Nigeria. Specifically, they are more congested in states like Kano. Kano has the most out of school children in the entire country. It has almost 1 million out of school children in that state. You have Jigawa State, you have Katsina State, and I think is it Gusau or something, I can't remember. Going back to the numbers, out of every 5 out of school children in the world, 1 of them is Nigerian. Out of every 5 out of school children in the world, 1 of them is Nigerian. There was also this report that was done in 2022 by, I think, was it Youth Hub Africa or so, in collaboration or with the help of Christian Aid or so, where they ranked the basic performance of basic education performance in the various states in the country. They basically like assessed states using indicators like school attendance, learning outcomes, access to education itself, infrastructure, literacy, numeracy, and the states were like overall compliance with basic education standards. And when the results came out, it was genuinely so jarring. Ondo State came out as ranking number 1 with 98%. FCT came out as second with 96%. Ebonyi was third with 90%. Rivers was fourth with 85%. Imo was fifth with 80%. And what was the most jarring to me regarding that list was the fact that almost every single top performing state on that list came from southern Nigeria. It came from the south. FCT was the only northern entry on that list. On the top 10, FCT was the only northern entry. And at the bottom of that list, at the bottom of the ranking with 0, was Gombe, Zamfara, Katsina, and Sokoto. They all recorded 0 because according to the report, the states failed to meet like the minimum recommendations for basic quality education, because many of these learners that they studied, they lacked foundational literacy and numeracy skills, and these are skills that are needed for someone to function in a society. Every time we talk about like the conversation of education, but there are brilliant people in the north, there are brilliant people in the north. The brilliant people in the north actually make up an alarming minority. Hope you know that. The brilliant people that we can actually see that get the opportunity to show their brilliance and to use their brilliance to go up in life, they make up an alarming minority. How many future doctors do you think never made it to secondary school? How many future engineers do you think never learned how to read? How many future scientists never sat in the 4 walls of a classroom? How many future teachers do you think exist in northern Nigeria that never received an education themselves? When we talk about like out of school children in the north, right? We're not talking about an isolated issue. We're not talking about something that's isolated. We're talking about a systemic crisis, a systemic failure. Because what is going on regarding education in northern Nigeria, it's not an accidental thing. It's not a coincidence. It is something that is incredibly intentional and deliberate. Who benefits from a population that is poor? Please tell me. Who benefits from a population that is not educated and is easy to manipulate? Who benefits from a population that not just lacks access to information, but lacks the ability to look for that information? Please tell me. Northern Nigeria alone carries a large proportion of Nigeria's entire population. Northern Nigeria alone, the population in northern Nigeria alone carries a lot of social, electoral, and political influence. The easiest way for people in power to maintain the power that they have is to ensure that that large population that they have continues to be dependent on them. Someone who is educated is much harder to deceive. A person who can think critically is much harder to manipulate. And a person who understands their right is harder to exploit. If someone can independently access information, that person is going to be harder to control. That is why ignorance is such a powerful tool.